Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The United Nations says the flooding in Pakistan has displaced an additional 1 million people in the last 2 days. The warning comes as hundreds of thousands of people are being evacuated from the southern city of Thatta. At the United Nations Emergency Relief Coordinator John Holmes said the flooding has significantly affected over 17 million people. The UN says some 8 million people are in need of emergency aid. Aid officials, meanwhile, are warning they're coming under threat from the Taliban and other militant groups. In Washington, State Department spokesperson P.J. Crowley said the U.S. is monitoring the alleged threats. The Washington Post is reporting the CIA has made regular payments to a number of top officials in the Afghan government. Some have been used as informants, while others have been paid to ensure access for U.S. officials. The payments have continued despite concerns the U.S. is backing the Afghan government corruption it's claimed to oppose. According to the New York Times, one of the officials is Mohammed Zia Salehi, who was arrested on bribery charges last month. The UN Security Council is calling for increased measures to prevent a repeat of the recent mass rapes of almost 200 women and 5 young boys in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Rwandan and Congolese rebels carried out the rapes between July 30th and August 3rd, within miles of a UN peacekeeping base. The UN was notified days later, but waited 3 weeks to respond. The top UN envoy to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Robert Meese, visited the area on Thursday. A U.S. citizen is on his way back to the United States after 8 months in prison in North Korea. Ajalan Mahli Gomez was freed today after former President Jimmy Carter traveled to North Korea to win his release. Gomez was imprisoned in January after North Korea claimed he unlawfully crossed over from China. Carter's visit came as North Korean leader Kim Jong-il traveled to China. There's been speculation Kim is seeking to win Chinese support for a transfer of power to his son, Kim Jong-un. New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson says he's made progress in talks with Cuban officials on releasing a jailed U.S. contractor. The contractor, Alan Gross, was arrested in December on suspicion of being a U.S. spy after handing out equipment to Cuban opposition groups. Speaking in Havana, Richardson rejected linking Gross's case to the jailing of the Cuban 5, who are serving lengthy sentences in the U.S. for trying to monitor violent right-wing Cuban exile groups responsible for attacks inside Cuba.
The Obama administration asked me to raise at the highest levels the case of Alan Gross, and I've done so with several officials. I've been informed by the Cuban government that the Gross case is at a very sensitive investigatory and legal process. And I do believe, as I want to emphasize, that I've made inroads on this case. I believe that the 2 cases of the Cuban 5 and the Gross case are separate, and I believe both countries are treating them separately.
South Africa's main labor union is threatening to widen a nationwide state workers' strike in a campaign for increased wages. Over 1 million workers have already walked off the job this month. On Thursday, the head of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, Zwelinzima Vavi, said all 2 million union members could soon take part.
In 7 days, the whole of this economy will stand still. The wheels in the mining industry that turns for gold to come up into surface, and diamond and coal will come to a stop. Everything
An Israeli military court has convicted a prominent Palestinian activist who heads a group opposing Israel's separation wall through the West Bank. Abdallah Abu Rama of the Bilin Popular Committee Against the Wall faces sentencing on multiple charges, including incitement. Abu Rama's attorney, Gabi Lasky, said the Israeli military is trying to silence nonviolent protest.
Regretfully, I don't believe that there are high chances of changing this conviction, since, as I've said, the use of the court in this matter has been a political use, illegitimate use, and we have to remember that these are the courts of the occupier being used against the occupied.
In a statement this week, the European Union condemned Abu Rama's conviction, calling him, quote, a human rights defender whose prosecution could be used to prevent him and other Palestinians from exercising their legitimate right to protest, they said. The New York City taxi driver stabbed by a drunken passenger in an anti-Muslim attack has spoken out publicly for the first time. The victim is Ahmed Sharif. He was slashed across his face, neck, and hands after the suspect, Michael Enright, determined Sharif is a Muslim. Speaking Thursday at City Hall, Sharif described the moment his neck was slashed.
I see the knife was front of my throat. And I go a little bit back, it came right over there. If this one can put it here, I'm not supposed to be talking right now, I'm dead. So when the attack come from the back, it was a shock. Still I'm scared. I mean, still I have a view of the knife when I close my eye.
The attack on Sharif came amidst the ongoing hysteria over a proposed Islamic cultural center near New York's Ground Zero. Enright faces multiple charges, including felony attempted murder as a hate crime. He's being held without bail. Aliyah Latif of the Council on American Islamic Relations said Enright should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Indeed, crimes motivated by racial and religious hatred implicate entire communities, and as such demand our utmost attention. To that end, Mr. Sharif's case should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law to serve as both a legal deterrent and public repudiation of violent bigotry.
Enright was embedded with troops in Afghanistan, making a documentary about them. More reports continue to emerge of anti-Muslim acts. The Council on American Islamic Relations says a man entered a mosque in Queens Wednesday night and shouted anti-Muslim slurs as he urinated on prayer rugs. The Obama administration's backing the effort of major utility companies to dismiss a case seeking to impose curbs on emissions of greenhouse gases. A group of plaintiffs, including 8 state governments and the city of New York, has filed suit seeking to force the Tennessee Valley Authority and 5 other utilities to reduce their emissions each year for a decade. On Thursday, the Justice Department said the case is unnecessary because the Environmental Protection Agency has sought to limit emissions. But environmentalists criticize the move because the curbs have only been proposed, not enacted. In West Virginia, 2 protesters opposed to anti-mountaintop removal mining were arrested Thursday after blocking an entrance to the State Department of Environmental Protection in Charleston. The activists had chained themselves to a barrel with the slogan, Department of Easy Permits. Both are members of the group Climate Ground Zero. And the charity of Microsoft founder Bill Gates and his wife Melinda is under criticism following the disclosure it substantially increased its holdings in the agribusiness giant Monsanto to over $23 million. Critics say the investment in Monsanto contradicts the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's stated commitment to helping farmers and sustainable development in Africa. In 2007, the Gates Foundation said it would review its holdings after a lengthy expose in the Los Angeles Times revealed it had invested nearly $9 billion in companies whose practices run counter to the foundation's charitable goals. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. It was 5 years